What's up, fellas? You might be asking, how did we end up here? And that's because I'm gonna show you how you can build organics like these in Minecraft. Well, I've had a lot of people ask me on Instagram and Discord for a full tutorial on my Minecraft builds and the whole process behind creating them. Therefore, I'm making a very cozy 2-part video series explaining all my steps for working on this build. In the first part, we'll be looking at how we can build something like this inside of Minecraft. And in the second part, coming later, we will take a look at how you can get the best quality picture out of your builds. Therefore, I'll show you how you can easily export your builds to Blender and how you can create a simple but amazing little render for it. So, if you want to be a professional Minecraft builder like I obviously am, keep watching. On a quick side note, I'll post the final build on my Patreon for free, so if you want to get your hands on it, you can check the download link in the description. Now, one thing before we move on. There are a few plugins that can really make your life a whole lot easier when building. So don't worry if you don't have your own private build server, you can always join a public one like MetaUnion or the Bakery. And there you can get access to those powerful plugins and tools that'll really speed up your workflow and make building a whole lot smoother. Now let's jump ahead into the build process. We first want to start by building the main shape. For this I often like to do the head shape first and then the rest follows later on. So I added a sphere and slightly modified it to resemble the shape that I'm going for. For reference, I'm using this picture to get an idea of the body shape that I'm going for. After that, there are multiple ways to shape your body. For organics like this, I often do a rough outline first, which I will fill in afterwards. As you can see, I did a 2D outline first, and afterwards I also added some horizontal lines to the main body and created a 3D grid. Note that I only started on one side first, since it's a symmetrical body that I'm going for, and I will mirror it to the other side later on. You can now fill this grid by hand, or in my case, use the Loft tool from Archeon to do so. If you don't know how to use this tool, here's a quick showcase. You want to start by left-clicking a point to begin your first frame, and then right-click to shape it. Once your first frame is done, you can add additional frames the same way. Left-click to start, right-click to shape. Repeating the process to define your entire form. And when you're finished, just enter this command, and your shape will be filled with the blocks of your choice. This won't always be perfect, so don't forget to smooth your shape afterwards. Once I'm done, I just repeat this process for all the other parts and we're pretty much good to go. Now I just added in some key details like the eyes and the general shape of the head, as well as mirroring the whole organic to the other side. And since I don't want it to feel very static, I also rotated the body a bit using Axiom. And this is it for the main body shape, so we are good to go to move on to the next step. Now that we've got the main body done, I want to continue by adding all smaller parts and limbs. So I start by shaping the bumblebee's antenna, which already add a lot, and then I move on to one of the most important parts, the wings. For shaping the wings, I started by mapping them out using individual blocks, and then, once I've got the outline, I will use the Loft tool from Archeon once again to fill them out. Now just clean them up a bit and they are good to go. Obviously, one of the most important parts that I'm still missing are the legs. So I start by blocking them out individually. For this, I'm using the reference image to get an idea on how to shape them, and once I've blocked them out, I use the spike command to fill them in. And then just do some cleanup by hand to get them looking right, and there you go, a nice pair of legs. Obviously, don't forget to also repeat that process on the other side. And now we've got the whole shaping process done, so we can move on to the next step. Coloring. I always start out the coloring process by separating all the parts into their individual colors, as well as painting on the rough pattern. So I'm using the reference for this, just to have a look where each color goes. Now, as you can see, bumblebees also have a very interesting pattern on the wings, so I also want to block that out before I go into the more detailed coloring. And once I've got all that blocked out, I use slabs, trapdoors and fences to really smooth out the shape. Now that that's done, it slowly starts looking like the organic that I'm going for. But the next step is really gonna take it from just being a partly finished organic to one that fully feels like the real thing. Because now we'll be going into the detailed coloring. For this, you wanna start out by grabbing yourself some nice gradients for each color segment. So I created some that go from bright gray and yellow to a darker shade, as well as one that goes from gray to yellow, because I also wanna be able to have some segments transitioning into each other. Now that I've got this, I'll start my coloring process. For this, I want to have it look like the light is shining down from the top front, Therefore I will color all the bottom parts of the organic in a darker shade and keep the top parts that are meant to be illuminated relatively bright. Keep in mind, this whole coloring step will take a bit since I'm going over the blocks individually, but it will be worth it in the end. Also, I added in some highlights on specific areas to give it a slightly shiny look. Now I just move on to coloring the head. One very important part of an organic are always the eyes, so don't forget to color these as well as the antenna up above. And since we don't ever want to skip legs, I grabbed myself a brown to black gradient and applied it to them. Now that's actually all the coloring that I'm going to be doing for this organic. So now we can move on to the last step, the detailing. Now for detailing, there are a few key details that I want to build. One of the most important ones is the fur. As you can see, bumblebees have this interesting fur pattern on the body, so I also want to replicate that on my organic. For this I'm gonna start out by blocking out the shape on the main body again, and now we're gonna have a pretty similar process to building the pattern on the wings. I will be using birch fences and trapeze to replicate that thin hair structure, and I'm also gonna be using pale oak to add in some highlights. And one more block that I'm gonna add are some corals. This is just to make the body feel like it has some fur. One quick disclaimer, if you want to use these blocks you're gonna need to have physics turned off, otherwise they will break. But if that doesn't work, don't worry, you can always skip this detailing process and the other details work really fine on their own. Now that I've done this, I repeat the process on all the other yellow parts, where I also wanted to have some fur. For this I'm using bamboo slabs and stairs, as well as once again some yellow corals to really give it the vibe that I'm going for. You can see me just going in, adding those details to all the parts that I feel are necessary, as well as fixing it up or also removing it on some parts where it just doesn't quite feel right. So don't feel shy to go over parts of your organic again and fix up stuff that doesn't seem right to you. At the end, it's your build, so what matters is you gotta be proud of what you've created. And now once again, we don't ever want to skip legs. So you're seeing me just adding in some slight fur to the underside of the legs, so that they'll actually feel less smooth and they look like the hairy insect legs that they represent. At last I'm adding in some small details and also smoothing out the shape using some slabs and stairs. And now I'd say we've got a pretty nice looking organic. So the last addition that you'll be seeing me do now is building a nice flower to go alongside. Oh, what a truly lovely day. And you see this lovely fellow over there? Let's take a closer look. Ah, it's a bumblebee. And we're done. It took a while, but now it's finished, and I'd say we did a pretty nice job. But let me know your thoughts down below. And now you've reached the end for part 1 of this little tutorial. But before you go, if you have any feedback on this video since it's my first time doing long form content, feel free to leave a comment down below. And the same goes for any wishes or ideas for future builds or topics that you'd like me to make a video about. And lastly, a big shout out goes to all my patrons and also all the amazing builders that I've met so far and from whom I've learned so much over the past years. Stay safe and keep on building. See you next time.